So we are sitting here with my good friend Ole. He is on his way from Copenhagen to Jutland, where he's recently moved. And a lot of things have been happening recently, Ole.
Yeah.
Not least, you have stopped working at Copenhagen Business School, the largest business university. One could also say you were fired.
One could also say that. That's true.
You were fired or asked to quit. I guess I read the news officially that you had quit.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a bit of confusion in the media. So I think, yeah, I was fired.
You were fired from your job in CBS. Came just a week after Jordan Peterson actually quit as a professor at Toronto.
I'm in good company.
Yeah. So you're in good company, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially given the words that he had for academic, the state of the academic institutions of the West these days. But yeah, we decided to sit down and have a little chat and to record it and put it out because something that's been a lot on your heart and your mind the last 2 years at least, right, has been the situation with Corona.
Yeah.
And Denmark, of course, just this week for the first time was the first big European or the first European country that completely dropped all Corona restrictions. So things are happening a lot right now as well. And so we thought, well, let's have a chat about like what's happened, where are we right now, and where are we heading in the future. So maybe can you give a little of the story, the background story, just shortly about like what's happened as far as your whole situation?
At CBS?
Yeah, at CBS,
yeah. So first of all, so I've been at CBS, Copenhagen Business School, for 12 years. And I've really enjoyed being there. I had great colleagues. I've had great freedom to do what I wanted. I've had amazing students. So I leave with a lot of gratitude. So I want to put that out there, first of all. And then secondly, when this whole Corona thing started about 2 years ago, I think I had the sense that I would eventually get to this point because I could, from the beginning, I knew personally that I was not gonna, I was very skeptical about everything that happened, and I was not going to comply to all these things that.
So when the lockdown started happening, when the government started like doing all these
and the mask and all that stuff, I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I found my own way. I mean, what I discovered pretty soon was that everything, even though it sounded like everything was rules, you have to do this, you have to do that, everything was voluntary. So I haven't done any of it. And I've been fine. I've been able to do what I wanted. So you just, you just need to kind of find your way through it. And then you could actually just say to people when you're into a shop or public transport, I'm actually exempt from the requirements of the mask, and that was actually legally accepted. And the same with the test and the thing and the passport and everything. The
vaccines.
So, but then what happened? It kind of started at the end of last year, but then culminated into this year, was that I was put in a position where I would have to require my students to show the pass to get into my class. I wasn't going to personally check it, but I would be sort of complicit in it. And I knew I was not going to do that for a number of reasons that I put out there. One of them is I believe it's illegal, but that's the least of it. It just goes against everything I stand for and everything that my calling as a teacher stands for. I think what I'm trying to teach my students ultimately is actually to become sovereign. Is to cultivate their own sense of judgment, their own power to be free and all that, and their capacity to think for themselves. That's ultimately, yes, I want them also to study some books and know some theories, but ultimately the kind of qualities I want to cultivate in them are exactly those. And for me, the passport and the restrictions and the whole this stands for the complete opposite. So there was no way for me to reconcile those two things. So I just said to my students and I said to my management that I wasn't gonna teach, together with my very good friend Rasmus, who we are sort of in this together. And then things happened quite quickly, and eventually we got kicked out. So that's where I am now. And I'm as much as I enjoy having been at CBS, I'm also perfectly at peace with it. Having left, it's how it. Yeah, I think there's a. Yeah, there's a certain movement in that which I can, easily go along with.
Yeah.
And I will also say this. Now you mentioned Jordan Peterson, and I'm not going to put myself sort of on his level, but I will say that there's also there's things about education in general, universities in particular, that I've also grown. I felt sort of increasingly alienated towards it. In fact, some years ago, there was another incident at CBS which had to do with this song. There was this, all the Danes know this, the international audience probably.
Give us the short summary.
Yeah, so the short summary, very, very short. I'm going to go backwards. So at some point it came out that there had been, it became public that there had been an incident at CBS where we had sung a particular song, which is like an old traditional Danish song. We'd sung it at like a just like a breakfast. What do you call it? Like a common breakfast thing. We sung this song, and then someone was she started crying because she thought it was racist, and that all of that came out in public.
What was the song?
Den danske sang er en ung blond pige.
The Danish song is a young blonde girl.
Yeah. So
which is an old Danish folk song in the folk songbook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that came out, and then it became like a huge. It became this clash between this Vogue culture and then a more sort of traditional Danish popular culture that kind of said, no, now this is enough, right? We can't sort of. So, and there was a clash there. And I was the one who put the song. I was the one who put the song on I was the one who decided that we were going to sing this song like years before. But I kind of stayed out of the public thing that went on. But of course, now that this is happening, I kind of came back to that. And there's something about it I think the reason why I put the song on basically was that I wanted there to be more spirit in the university. There's not it's like we've kind of lost our spirit. There's no spirit there. There's no sort of spirit of curiosity. There's no spirit of being together. Yeah, I thought I'd just throw this song in there, and then all hell broke loose. So, and I will also say it's also what has grown on, or has become increasingly more sort of pertinent to me over the last 2 years is exactly this lack of spirit. And I think that's also why universities, my university, but all universities have just gone along with this. We've just gone along with something with no scientific basis, no common sense. It's illegal. It's against everything that universities say that they stand for. Like my university, they're all about diversity. Oh, diversity this, diversity that. But then when it comes to diversity in terms of do you want to take an injection or not, it's like, no. Yeah. And I think and I think spirit to me is tied very intimately to sovereignty. And to me, sovereignty is the ability to have a connection to something bigger than yourself that allows you to think and act like from your own point of view, rather than just sort of doing what some kind of a system tells you to do. I think I feel that what's happened over the last, not just 100 years, but many, many years, is that we've substituted spirit for systems. So we think we think that some of the systems are the spirit. Like the state, for instance, we think that the state is the spirit. It's like our spiritual guidance and so forth, but it's not. And that's the beauty of what's happening over the last 2 years, is that that's come to the fore. We can now see that. And I think that's right where we are. I think we're on there's a shift in this Corona movement. I don't know.
It's like the winds change direction somehow, or something like that. There's something else moving in now here.
And to me, so one way of thinking about it was, a lot of people think, oh, now it's over, now the restrictions are gone, and now we can just go on with our lives or go on as before. I don't think that's going to happen. So what I've seen is that over the last 2 years, there's been like a separation or division between those who were, I'm going to use the term awake. And I don't mean that in the sense that those who are awake are better people than others, but they are just sort of, they're awake to something. They are awake to the fact that there's something off here. There's
a skepticism often towards kind of the introduction of control systems based on anxiety. It seems like a widespread anxiety and a media narrative which has been riding in a strong cycle of kind of building up, and often kind of in the face of any opposition, pushing that away and reinforcing or doubling down on a narrative which has been increasingly losing credibility, actually, and kind of a lack of a desire to look at that. And so when you say awake, you mean like a desire to, an opening of like, okay, well, let's actually look at these things. And
also a sense of there's something wrong here. This is not right. And what I've experienced, what I've seen, I know a lot of these people, and I'm probably one myself. So, but I've met very few people who have woken up during those 2 years. Either they were onto it right from the get-go, or they've only started waking up in late December and into this year, 2022. And so what I'm seeing is that we're now moving into kind of the second wave of awakening. So I think, and I'm seeing that already, that a lot of people are not right now waking up to what like waking up from a dream or something. And they're like, what is this? And the ones who were already awake when this started, I've kind of noticed that you can't kind of systematically say, oh yeah, they were people who were more on the left or more on the right or more this or more that or more. They were like coming from all kinds of backgrounds, which I also find beautiful in a sense.
And concerning, because the kind of split in the two different narratives of Corona seems to go through all existing communities, right?
Yeah, but I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, because it really says this: none of the old divisions are going to help us through this. None of them. So it's not like and you can't say oh yeah, so this is just the old left, right. This is just the old urban, rural. This is just the old. No, none of that. You can't do that. So, but what I do think, or what I do find that these people have in common, is that they've had experiences previously in their lives where they've kind of had experiences of the system kind of letting them down or lying to them, or so a lot of these people, or most of them, have kind of, in the way when Corona came, they kind of hit the ground running. They already knew that what they're saying on TV is a lie, or largely a lie, or other things. So but the ones that are waking up now, they are people who've lived their entire lives sort of inside the matrix, I was going to say, or inside the systems, which also means that the awakening that's going to happen now is going to be a lot more dramatic, and it's going to be a lot faster. So for many people, myself included, for me, like my process of awakening has been 20 years maybe, right? So I've kind of been able to take it sort of in small steps. But right now you're going to see people who are going to wake up over the course of 3 weeks or 4 weeks. They're going to wake up to something like, and the whole view of the world is going to unravel. And then they're just going to be, what? And it is going to be dramatic and traumatic also to a lot of people. And then the challenge for these people is going to be, will they quick enough be able to check into like something new as this old thing unravels. And the new thing that we're going to check into, we're not going to check into a new system. That's like the left used to have this idea of revolution where, oh, we have one system, capitalism, we'll break it down, and then we'll have a new system, communism, and then we can just check into that.
Much better.
Yeah.
That's gonna be better.
Yeah, that's not what's gonna happen now. What's gonna happen now is that all the systems that we have now, they're gonna like, I don't think they're gonna like blow up. I think they're gonna sort of dry up just like raisins, like just the energy is just going to be sucked out of it, and the people are going to be sucked out of it. People would start checking out of, no, I don't want to be a teacher in this system anymore. No, I don't want to be a nurse in this system anymore. No, I don't want to be a government official in this system anymore. No, I'm not going to be a journalist in this system anymore. So they're just going to check out of this, and so these systems are just going to sort of shrink, and then people are going to be. Then what's going to be left when the systems sort of withdraw, or what they do, is going to be people. It's just going to be human beings looking at each other and being like, oh, we don't have any systems anymore. We don't have any systems to tell us what to do. We don't have any systems to provide for us. Or what can we do as human beings? And that's what that's already waking up to. And so there's a lot of, I think if you look at the whole movement, it's very, very beautiful what's happening. And I think we're moving to a very, very, very good place. But before we get there, I'm saying we could, because I think there's a collective movement in this, but there's also just people do this in their own sort of at their own pace in a way. Some people are already there. Some people will be there in a week. Some will be there in a month. Some will be there in 3 months. And then maybe some people are probably, I think it's going to be a minority, but I think there will be some people who will just be, I think in 5 years or 10 years, you're still going to see people running around with masks, for instance, just to take one example, even though like, even now it's not, you don't have to do it anymore, and people still do it. So they, and some people, they're just going to hold on to this, even though it's already happening now. I think the system now is withdrawing, but some people are still living by the commands that the system kind of gave, like the echo of their commands. And I think that's, for some people, that's because it's so terrifying to kind of check out of that. And there's also a lot of ego in it, because if you've kind of done what the system told you for 2 years, then if all of a sudden you're going to say, oh, I'm not going to do it anymore, then you, with yourself, you're going to have to ask yourself, why did I do it for 2 years? Like, if it doesn't make sense now, it didn't make sense then, what? So there's a lot of also ego in this that needs to, that we need to let go of.
I think it's really interesting, this idea of systems versus spirit. You kind of put it up there, and sovereignty of people, and finding that kind of clarity. I think we could talk a little bit more about the academic system or the educational system, because so my son's 15 now. He's finishing school this year. He's looking, what should he do next? So he's looking at different options, and he doesn't think he wants to go to university. He's seen a little bit of Jordan Peterson. I didn't actually introduce it to him. It was the kids in his class that showed him Jordan Peterson.
If you want your children to start university, don't show them Jordan Peterson videos. It's not good for them.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. But it's also because he's eager to get out there and do something in the world, and he can see, like, this academic thing, it's becoming disconnected from reality and from actually making things happen somehow. And so I've been sitting with him looking at different places, and he's found like some different things. And what I just noticed with all of these HTX, and STX, and all these different kind of gymnasia and technical schools, is like, there's a real lack of spirit. There's no spirit in these places. And so there's one big business school in Copenhagen. It's Niels Brock. So I was like, oh, who's Niels Block? Let's look that up. Like, who is that guy? You know, what did he do? It's like, okay, he was some business guy. And so there's a kind of like a spirit of Niels Block somehow in there. It was a long time ago. He donated some money and they formed a business school. I would say that was one of the positive examples. Like there was something there. Most of the other places, it's this like slick branded website with all the smart, politically correct pictures of like, you know, 1.5 black people and 1 Asian woman. And, you know, my son was, one thing that really peeved him off, there was like a school which had like an esports line, and they had 3 girls introducing the esports line and talking about esports lines. And he's like, this is ridiculous. Like, of course there's like a large majority of boys doing esports, right? Like he knows that, everybody knows that. But then they have to they take the 3 girls that they can find and put them up and get them to talk about it, right? So it's just like this kind of like the systems are being run increasingly by a dynamic. Actually, we don't need to talk about it, Ole, but I don't like you using that word awakening and waking up and stuff like that, because for me, like that's what, you know, that woke is this idea of a waking up, right? And so I want
to say something about this woke thing, and then I want to say something about education. What I've noticed also during these 2 years is that everything has 2 sides that kind of look. So you have awakening and you have woke, and they're opposites, but they kind of look like maybe it's a little bit the same. And I've noticed that with so many things. I've also noticed with some people talk about the Great Reset, like that's what the elite is kind of implementing. The World Economic Forum is open about this. We want to, and then there's the Great Awakening, and they kind of, and then I looked that up, and then it said crown is the symbol of sovereignty. I was like, wow. And I experienced that in myself, that in the process of saying no to all these things, my sovereignty has grown by the day. Like just this experience of, there's a rule, you have to wear the mask, please wear the mask, do. And then I go into a shop and they're like, where's your mask? And I say, I'm exempt. And in Danish, it's more beautiful because the word is fritaget. So, which means I've taken my freedom. So you go into a shop and they're like, you need to wear the mask. And you smile at them, you say, I've taken my freedom. And then they light up and say, okay, fine. And I've had that. So that in that my sovereignty kind of grows, that I don't have to do what the systems tell me to do. There's other laws that I have to obey, but not those. So to me, there's been this, on the one hand, there's been, yes, tyranny on the one hand and all that, and stupidity, you know, but there's also sovereignty. So there's both sides at the same time. Okay, so that was just like a side note here. And then you said this thing about of course, I've been working in the education. My father, both my father and my mother were teachers, worked as teachers all their lives until they retired. And I had both of them in school. So I've grown up in the school, and I never left school. I mean, I started working as a teacher. So I've been thinking a lot about education, but a thing that kind of dawned on me, and again, I have to say, I will say this, I've really been grateful for CBS. That place has given me so much, the students, my colleagues, and so forth. So what I'm saying here is not a critique of any individual. It's not a critique of the people in the system. It's a critique of the system. But what I found was that what we're teaching the young people, to a large extent, we're giving them skills to interact with other systems. We're giving them system skills. So it's like, here's this one education system to teach you how to interact or be in these other systems. And these other systems can be big corporations, can be government organizations, can be NGOs, but it's these system competences. Whereas more sort of like being able to have a conversation with another human being, being able to have empathy for another human being, being able to be generous to another human being, all those sort of basic qualities. The good thing about young people is that they have those competences. They're healthy. So they have these things, but they don't have it because we give it to them. It's more to the contrary. It's like they have it, and then the system kind of molds them and does all these things to them, and then So anyway, so
I studied political science at Copenhagen University, and it's very clear how it is a system to form your way of thinking and being, to be a neutral bureaucrat that can, in a very specific way, manage a little wheel in the system somehow. And what I was thinking of is, so I've been reading a guy called Victor Turner. He's an anthropologist. Talks about rites of passage. He built so he has this idea of structure, he calls it, which is the systems, and then he talks about rites of passage as a ritual, as when you take people out of a system, they experience spirit and that kind of, and they experience communitas as well there. And then they go back into the structure again afterwards, but with a renewed sense of purpose and direction, and kind of refreshed understanding of the way things lay out. In some ways, one can say Corona, and looking at it through Victor Turner's terms, our entire society has been in like he talks about ritual as that period betwixt and between, where everything's upside down, everything's paradoxical, the normal rules don't apply. And in some ways, like, everybody's been in a period of ritual of paradox somehow. I remember us sitting, so I spent the first 2 months of the first Danish lockdown with my parents-in-law at their house in Fyn, away from the big city where I was living at the time. And we had also my wife's sister and her husband, so and kids and stuff like that. So we're a big group of people that we sat there, and I remember we decided, okay, let's have this is something big happening here. And so we sat around our dinner table every evening, and we did like a sharing round. And I remember just this sense that we were saying, like, okay, well, we're really going through something that's changing stuff now, and nothing's going to be the same. We don't really know what's going to happen, but we knew that we could use this to bond together as a group of people. And if we did that, then we would be far stronger, kind of, to find our way through it somehow, right? And I think that's, for me, has been the difference that I've seen in people facing this Corona thing. Is a lot of people, they've kind of retreated, and it's been Netflix, and it's been, kind of like that, the fragmentation of into kind of these little individual bubbles, and the fear that comes from that, right? It's a very, very fruitful way of thinking about it, like as a collective rite of passage. And I think everyone has been through a rite of passage, regardless of how they've handled this and what they've done. Everyone has been in some sort of a rite of passage, which is also why I think that now that we're kind of moving into this second stage, regardless of what you did for the last 2 years, something is going to happen to you now. Because you've kind of been in this space, this liminal space. I think also Victor Turner talks about this. You've been in this. He basically invented that term. Popularized
it. So you've been in this liminal space for 2 years, and now you come out, and now I think some people will have come out of this sort of more prepared in a way, because they have an idea of what's going on, and maybe even what's going to happen. And others.
We spoke yesterday a little bit about what are the things that people, the keys that people can use to make sure they orientate in the right direction moving out of there. I feel very strongly about this thing about being an embedded organic community, not being disconnected, not standing by yourself. You have sovereignty of the individual. But we also spoke yesterday about this thing with victimhood, right?
I think one thing, or a major thing, that is happening already, and it's just going to increase over the coming weeks and months, is people waking up to the facts, people waking up to the effects of what's been going on for the last 2 years. So the pressure is kind of off. The government, the system have retreated. And now we are kind of left with the consequences of our own actions. And one of the things that we're going to wake up to are the consequences of taking the injection. And that's coming out now. And what will come out is that, or what is coming out is that it has, I was going to say side effects, but I'm not even sure they're side effects. I think they are the effects of it, right? Yeah, and you can look that up, what those are, and it's coming out already. And what people are also going to wake up to is that it was all voluntary. They think they did it because the government told them to do that. But when they look closer, they will find out that no, they didn't really tell you to do it. They recommended it maybe, but you did it yourself. And which also means that you can't, your first impulse is to check into a victimhood, like, oh, the government did this to me, or the health authorities did this to me, or the medical companies did this to me. But then when you look closer into it, even legally, like the medical companies have put in like clauses that they say, well, we're not liable. You can't, if something happens, you can't sue us. So they kind of say, we're not taking responsibility. So what we're going to find out is that the responsibility has kind of been pushed down, all the way down to the individual person. And so, and also some people, they've done it to their kids as well. So they're also going to wake up to that. And I'm not saying everyone is going to be, I think we're also going to wake up to finding out that people didn't get the same thing in these. I think that's also coming out already, that it's not the same that's in all of this. And some of it is like just salt water or something like that. And some of it is some really nasty stuff, right? So I think a lot of people are just going to wake up to, wow, this could have gone really wrong, but it didn't. I was lucky here, but I wasn't lucky because I was just lucky, or for some reason. Anyway, so, but I think the way out of this is to, regardless of what you've done, you yourself need to take full responsibility. And you also need to take full responsibility of your body, because like, imagine that you get some of these side effects. What are you going to do? Are you going to go back to the same healthcare system that gave you the injection in the first place? Or are you going to say, okay, this is my body. Now I will take responsibility for this body. I will take responsibility for my health. First of all, I'm going to look out. I'm going to find out, how does this body work? What does it need actually? Where can I get what it needs? And also, where can I get help? Rather than just, oh yeah, I'll ask the government or the state, then look out, no, maybe I'll ask someone else. And I think we're going to see, just within health, I think we're already seeing that, like a flourishing of all kinds of what we used to call like alternative practices. We're going to see that because the mainstream health system has just failed miserably. So people are just going to be, we need to, and the same thing in education, which has been going on. That's kind of the thing that Jordan Peterson started, was that it used to be like this: if you're into philosophy, you need to go to the university. And then he just put out his lectures on YouTube, and young people, young men in particular, were like, I'm into philosophy, but I don't want to go to the university, or I can't go to university, or so I'm just going to go read these books myself or watch these videos myself. So, and that's what we're going to see in all of the systems, including the healthcare system. But when you do that, like with education, you need to, you take responsibility for your own education. And I'm seeing young people doing that today. Rather than saying, yes, I check into the system, I just do. They're like, what do I want to learn and where can I learn it? And then they just look around and then they take something here. something here, something here. But they take responsibility for it, and that takes it takes courage. But because it means your responsibility. It also means if you don't get a job or whatever you want, or if you don't, it's also your responsibility. You can't like say, oh, I had this education, now I blah blah blah. So I think also what's gonna unravel is this whole victimhood thing. Victimhood is not gonna be a solution anymore. It never was. It was a solution, but it's a bad solution. Now it's just not gonna.
You could give some short-term benefits, but the long-term kind of consequences of taking a victim hit role is basically, I mean, it's the path to hell, really, right? It's stagnation, and eventually it doesn't lead anywhere. So yeah, what I also see right now is that the blame game is going to start, and there's going to be a lot of pointing fingers, and there's going to be a lot of placing of responsibility and blaming. And it's going to be a temptation for each one of us for everything, and it could be for many different things. You know, you talk about like there could be consequences, there could be insights that change, there could be, you know, things that people see differently. But I think that each person will have to decide for themselves. Can I actually take full responsibility for everything that I've done, everything that's happened, and even when there will be plenty of examples to point towards to say, well, this person manipulated me, this person lied, this person put out false information, you know, so well, you know, still am I able to be the person who can take responsibility for where I want to go from now on as well. So,
and I also think some of the systems that you would normally blame, they will be withdrawn. They will be like raisins. So you can't. So there's nothing. There's no energy there to blame, kind of like, because it's disappearing. So these fingers, they're going to be doing like this immediately. Because there's nothing there really.
I think we're going to see some, I don't know if you know René Girard, we're going to see some scapegoating and some public witch hunts and crucifixions.
But it's going to be so unclear who. There was like, for the last few months, there's been like, they've tried to sort of blame the ones who didn't get the injection. That's been going on. It didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't have energy. It was just like, no, it didn't really work. So yes, I think there will be scapegoat, but I think it's going to be very difficult to kind of.
That's not going to work.
It's really not going to work, and it's going to be short-lived. It's going to be so it's not going to have traction. I think the universe or God or whatever it is going to throw these things right back at people. And they're gonna. So I think what a sort of short way of saying this is that COVID-19 is over. Now it's just Corona. Now it's just sovereignty. So that's what it's all. And we're all gonna catch. Everyone's gonna catch the sovereignty virus, the coronavirus, the sovereignty virus, and it's gonna spread. And that's another thing I'm also noticed is that. Like, so viruses, they kind of spread through human beings, right? And maybe you can say, well, the COVID-19 virus, there's elements of that which spreads through the system. Like a lot of the COVID-19 has spread through the television, right? It's just in the television. So if you turn off the television, it disappears, right? Or if you just if you don't get tested, you don't have it, right? So but the coronavirus, the sovereignty virus, that doesn't spread through systems. It spreads through human beings, through human interactions between human beings. So you meet someone who's sovereign, and you can sense that. Your system can sense that, even if you don't necessarily understand it on a cognitive level. Your whole system, here's a sovereign being, and then you kind of get some of that, and you become inspired, and that kind of. So I think that's what we're gonna. That's what we're seeing already now. It's the coronavirus is just spreading through our society, and it's beautiful.
Beautiful and very encouraging, and really touching to just see such a positive approach from a man who's just been fired from his.
I'm so positive. I'm only positive. I'm seeing. I'm every single day, I'm seeing and I'm experiencing so many good things.
Maybe a little bit of like, what does the universe or God have in store for Ole in the next coming time? Do you have any ideas or feelings about what direction things are heading?
I'm gonna say, so what he has in store for me is that when we end this conversation, I'm going to drive to Djursland, to Kælø, to visit my oldest son, who in all of this, he checked out of his 3G, his high school or gymnasium. Yeah. And now he's learning how to farm. He's doing farming. He's learning how to weld. He's learning how to drive a tractor. And I'm going to go visit him. That's what the universal God has in store for me today. And to me, that's also a thing that I've learned is that I don't know what's going to happen in a month in my life. I have sort of vague ideas, but I don't know. And that's a good thing to me because I kind of trust. I don't have to make it. The same thing with this. Of course, I knew with this when we started this thing, this CBS thing is, I kind of knew where it was going to end, but I didn't. That was not the reason. It was not like I had a plan and that's why I'm going to do this. It started before. It's kind of like, no, this is how it feels. This is what my heart tells me to do. And then I go with the heart. And then my experience is that when I do this, then doors open to me. So one thing, for instance, is that we haven't entirely landed it yet, but like 2 days after I realized that I had been fired, I was offered a new job, which was better, or which was something that I want a lot more than what I came from, like just my dream job. So let's see if it plays out, but that's my experience. So I don't need to know what's going to happen. I need to know that I'm going to meet my son in 3 hours. But other than that, I'm exaggerating. But there's something about this. And I think that's also I think that's also what those who are waking up right now is they need to wake up to opening a space where they don't know what's going to happen. And they need to check out of the sort of false security that the systems have provided for them. And then there's going to be a space where there's like nothing. And then in that space of nothing, they're going to have to find another source of security and comfort and faith and hope, which is not the systems. So that's going to be like the spiritual challenge also. And you need that. If you just check out of the systems, and you don't, then you go crazy. And I mean that. I mean it. And I mean that. I mean it literally. I mean it literally. You go crazy. And we're seeing that. I know already there are people going crazy. I talked to someone who was a nurse in a hospital, and she says, she was like in the psychiatric ward or whatever. And so many patients, people are like, they're going nuts. This was already happening like before. And we're going to see that. We're going to see people going nuts as well. So
maybe I can Maniphesto, where we spend most of our time together. That's this organization where we're working with the men. We have online groups and we have European Men's Gathering that we have once a year here in Denmark. And one of the discussions we've had regularly, and we had yesterday as well, actually, with Jonathan Pajeur, that was this idea of the masculine as something that's somehow been lost in our culture or being identified as being toxic and bad, and we need to get rid of it, or we need to try and change it, or reinvent it, or something like that as well. And so we've come together as a group of guys, and we thought, well, there's something good about masculinity, and we need to work with that, and we need to understand it better. And one of the things we've already found is that there's lots of things that need to be done, but there's also an aspect in which one needs to surrender and accept and to just learn to be as well. And I think it's very tied in with this conversation about spirit that you're talking about, and it's about finding your place somehow in the hierarchy of being. And so So as a man, often, we're there to take responsibility and to protect and to provide and to create structure that other people can thrive within. And so that's kind of like the masculine aspect. But what you spoke about as well is that you've stepped into a period of not knowing right now, especially, and it's become very, very apparent. And there's this real need of being able to trust and accept and be integrated with that which is greater than yourself.
Yeah.
As well, right? Because if you step out of that and you don't have a trust and accept of that, or that there's something that's holding you, then you will fall, right? And there's no limit to how far you can fall into the levels of craziness as well.
And that's a feminine movement.
And that's a feminine movement.
And what I've seen, so I used to be, like years ago, I was involved in monetary reform movement, and to a large extent, that was a movement, that was a very intellectual movement. It was a movement that was led by men, and it was to a large extent sort of masculine. What I found this over the last 2 years, this Corona sort of, I don't know if skepticism or any, I find that that's actually led by women or the feminine. And I think it's because what these women have, of course there's also men there, but it's feminine, and it's because it starts from just a sense of there's something wrong here. I don't know what's wrong, and I don't understand what's going on, and I don't understand why they're doing this, but I can sense in my heart and my womb or my stomach or whatever that there's something wrong here, like just this instinctive. If you just stay in this space of conspiracy, you also go nuts. Actually, you end in a dark place. So you need this feminine quality of saying there's something else at play here, but it's something that I cannot understand. I can feel it. If I open up to it, I can sense it in my heart, but I can't grasp it in my head. So I just need to open my heart and surrender into that and trust that. So I see that, and I also want to add. So you said we have this culture where we kind of lost masculinity, which I agree with, but we've also lost femininity. We've lost like true femininity. And again, these things that mean different things. I think we talked about feminism for I don't know how long, and the kind of feminism we've talked about has nothing to do with the feminine.
It's actually an idolization of the masculine for a woman.
Exactly.
That's what feminism
so, but what's coming out now, what I'm seeing now is true. I don't know if you want to use the word, but to me, it's like true feminism. That's what I'm seeing in this movement. It somehow it also has this, I love this, I sometimes see this sort of grandmother energy, like this old, wise woman. She's been around the block, and she's like, care for the children, doesn't care about the system, like, and she has this wisdom. I've seen that, and I felt that energy in this movement, and it's just like, that's what's going to get us through this. And masculinity as well. But a masculinity, I think the role of the masculine right now is to hold space for the feminine. That's kind of what I see. Yeah.
I mean, I think we always need both masculine.
Of course.
There's always a masculine. It's the way that we're relating to each other.
Of course,
all the time. But yeah, and then I think so. I don't think we can survive without systems. I think that we can't just get rid of all the systems. I think they need to be. So I think systems can be renewed. I believe much more in evolution rather than revolution. It's clear we're going through a paradigm shift right now. Where we're seeing things from a radically new way. But yeah, what do you see as and I think we'll be closing off now. But what do you see as like, things to be holding on to or to be using to orientate yourself as we're moving through into unknown times or into new times right now?
Yeah, I think each and every one of us needs to kind of start with us, go into ourselves, and then feel kind of what in my life feels because we know all of the things, most of this we already know in our hearts. So we just need to open up to our hearts. And we need to have the courage to let go of everything that isn't kind of aligned with our true purpose. And we know this in our hearts. I hear so many people who are so tired of their jobs right now. That's like going around right now. And it's because their hearts know this is not your true calling. This is not why you're here, being whatever you are, right? And then we just need to have the courage to kind of let go of that. And then maybe also even have the courage of saying, now I'm going to let go of this. And then I'm going to trust that whatever is already in my life and which is true to my calling will stick. But I don't think you can, I don't have a plan. Not even in my own life. I don't even know it in my own life. So I'm certainly not in a position to advise other people on this. And I think the whole point here is the way to sovereignty can only, you can't have other people can't give you sovereignty. You can only give yourself, you can only take it all. So I don't have a, I can't even say that. I do agree that we will have some systems, but the only systems that are going to survive are the only ones that enhance sovereignty rather than take it away. Like, so if you look at cryptocurrencies, which I'm into, it's a beauty of, one of the beauties of that is that it kind of forces people to take full responsibility of their own assets and wealth and money. It's not, you don't have a bank to do it for you. You're right. So that's the kind of systems that we're going to see in the future. The one that empowers you, or no, I don't want to use that word. That gives you, that preserves your sovereignty. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Ole, thank you very much for coming by. It was great having you here at the Monastery and some really good conversations last night.
Thank you. I feel very invigorated.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it was good. And thanks for having a chat, and all the best as you head out into your journey of standing in free taking. This is the free tail. What do you take?
Free tail. Yeah.
Your sovereignty.
Yeah.
And at the same time surrendering to that. Yeah,
and it feels so good.
Beautiful.
I can just, it feels, to everyone who, I don't know, I've got emails from people who are like worried about me. Don't be, I'm fine. I've never been better in my life. So
yeah. No, I can confirm. Like, since you've been here, I think there's we work ourselves into systems and structures of being which limit us in so many ways. And so I've never seen a more wise Ole, actually. Why? Because it gives us the ability to see things as well, right? So,
thank you.
It's been good having you here, Ole.
Thank you, Paul.
Good.